At 0847 hours, 4 Russian nuclear-capable bombers were heading straight for the Norwegian Sea with an escort of 2 fighters. While everything seemed routine for the Russian pilots,
at 0722 hours, a single radar track lifted off from Alenia Air Base and turned west toward NATO airspace. On paper, it was just another Russian long-range patrol. In reality, it was a nuclear-capable bomber flying straight into a trap it couldn't even see. Moscow thought it was sending a message. What it actually sent was a flying intelligence gift wrapped in aluminum and titanium, and by the time the crew realized what was happening, it was already too late. The aircraft was a Tu-160 Blackjack, Russia's fastest and most advanced strategic bomber. 4 NK, 3.2 engines, afterburning turbofans capable of pushing 55,000 pounds of thrust each. Maximum speed above Mach 2. Internal rotary launchers designed to carry KH-101 and KH-102 cruise missiles, the latter capable of delivering a nuclear payload across continents. When this bomber lifted into the Arctic sky, it wasn't just metal and fuel. It was political theater with wings. At 0738 hours, NATO's early warning radar in northern Norway detected the climb. Long before the bomber reached the Barents Sea, its radar cross-section had already painted itself across multiple surveillance systems. Ground-based Globus radar locked the track. An E-3 AWACS orbiting 300 kilometers south adjusted its scan pattern. Analysts in 3 countries began watching the same blinking symbol move steadily west. Inside the Blackjack cockpit, everything felt routine. The crew followed standard patrol procedures. Cruise altitude set at 36,000 feet. Speed steady at 480 knots. Escort fighters 2 Mi-G, 31BM interceptors took positions slightly behind and below, forming a protective screen. Their Zaslon M radars swept the forward hemisphere, powerful enough to detect large targets at over 300 kilometers. From their perspective, the airspace looked empty. It wasn't. At 0746, 2F-35A Lightning IEs from Norway's 332 Squadron received scramble orders. Wheels up within 4 minutes. Instead of flying direct toward the bomber, they angled north. First, climbing aggressively to 40,000 feet before turning east in a wide arc. This wasn't a mistake. It was geometry. A head-on intercept would create extreme closure rates, over 900 knots combined speed. That gives pilots seconds to assess, seconds to react. A rear quarter approach reduces closure dramatically and keeps the interceptors outside the Mi-G-31's strongest radar cone. The Zaslon M is optimized for forward detection. Its massive phased array scans ahead in a powerful 120-degree arc. Behind the aircraft, much thinner coverage. A blind corridor stretching several dozen kilometers. The F-35s aimed directly for that corridor. They never activated their radars. At 0812 hours, the Lightnings were 110 kilometers behind the Russian formation, 5,000 feet above, running entirely passive. Their ANAAQ-37 distributed aperture system had been tracking the Tu-160 since 200 kilometers out. 6 infrared cameras stitched together a full spherical image around each aircraft. The bomber's 4 engines burned hot against the -25-degree Arctic air, each exhaust plume glowing like a torch. Against cold sky, heat stands out like fire in darkness. The Mi-G-31 crews checked their scopes again. Nothing. Number spike. Number unusual return. The F-35's radar cross-section, roughly the size of a small bird, simply didn't give the Russian systems enough energy to form a solid track at that range. Physics doesn't care about pride. Radar energy reflects based on shape and material, and the F-35 was designed to scatter that energy away like light off angled glass. Inside NATO's network, Link 16 pulsed quietly. Every second, 128 time slots of shared information, position, speed, altitude, thermal signature. The AWACS saw everything. Norwegian ground stations saw everything. Even a British Typhoon orbiting far to the south received the same composite picture. The Russian formation believed it was operating in open air. In reality, it was moving inside a digital cage built from data. At 0821 hours, one of the F-35 pilots switched briefly to low-power radar burst, less than 2 seconds. The APG 81 AESA array focused over 1,000 transmit-receive modules into a razor-thin beam. It measured precise range and velocity for the Tu-160 and both escorts. Then it shut off instantly. Inside the MiG-31 cockpits, warning tones exploded. SPO-15 threat receivers flashed. Targeting alert. Radar lock indication. The tone every combat pilot knows by instinct. The MiG crews reacted immediately, banking hard toward the perceived threat axis. Zaslon radars ramped to maximum output. Electronic countermeasure pods activated. And then, silence. The spike vanished. No track, no target, just empty sky. The F-35s had already returned to passive mode, listening instead of transmitting. Their ANASQ-239 electronic warfare suite recorded everything the Russians emitted in response: frequency bands, pulse repetition intervals, power output curves, reaction time between detection and countermeasure activation. Every defensive move was captured and stored. The Russians were trying to defend themselves. NATO was studying them. At 0834 hours, the F-35s slid closer, now within 60 kilometers. Still undetected. The Tu-160 adjusted heading slightly south, edging closer to NATO's northern boundary. It was a calculated show of strength, a reminder that Russia could project power at will, but strength without awareness becomes vulnerability. From above and behind, the Norwegian pilots built simulated firing solutions. If this had been a shooting war, AIM-120D missiles would have launched from beyond visual range, traveling at Mach 4, guiding autonomously in their terminal phase. The Tu-160 would never have seen the aircraft that destroyed it. Its escorts would have reacted to explosions, not radar warnings. Instead, NATO chose to send a message. At 0841 hours, both F-35s descended along the bomber's rear aspect, closing carefully while maintaining minimal radar profile. Over 10 slow minutes, they reduced distance from 50 kilometers to under 1. And still, Russian radar showed nothing they could shoot at. What Moscow believed was a display of nuclear intimidation had quietly turned into something else entirely. The most advanced strategic bomber in Russia's fleet was being shadowed, mapped, analyzed, and electronically dissected in real time. And the crew inside had no idea how exposed they truly were.